Hello, everyone. Hi, Dr. Eunice. How are you?
Hi, Noha. How are you? I'm good here. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for being with us today.
How are
Also,
you?
I'm really fine and happy because you are among us today in our DevFest 2020 by GDG Carthage. So I want to introduce you to our community, starting by this today. Dr. Eunice is CEO of UX Indonesia, co-founder CX Insight Australia, and also as GDE in UX design and Google Startup Mentor in product design, right?
Thank you.
Great. Would you like to add something on this, talking about your experience? And we want really to know more about your path in UX design.
I started my career in UX since 2000. So it's not really young. So I founded my so I'll just maybe I'll something on my slide. That's okay. Okay, that's good. Doing I founded the first UX company in 2002, and since thousands of companies and individuals in the field of UX design, customer experience design, individuals to learn about UX, and we have a lot of UX trainings, UX certification programs, and we also help companies and to solve problems and digital transformation through our research, consulting, mentoring program. So this is
Nice.
some of so this is some of the things that being training hours, training and certification and coaching doing since 2002. So we still have a good start. Hopefully it will continue like that. Yes, these are some of the companies that have benefited through our project and activities. So when talking about Google, I started my first involvement at Google in 2015 as a mentor in a Launchpad program. And then after that, the very first Google Program Accelerator program in 2006 in San Francisco. So I've been since 2015 until now. I don't miss any of the Google Launchpad program, even though now that we are doing. But it is such a joy to be the activities because I have a lot of opportunities to mentor hundreds of startups from all over the world, including startups from Middle East as well as startups from Africa. So I'm glad that I'm with a lot of them. It's also when I started the program as the Google developer expert. We're not doing that anymore, but we still have and we still help each other. So in the Google startup accelerator, I was startup, so like a startup, the venture or Series A startup, and working out with them through their product and development. And also right now I'm helping a lot GDG in Perth. So we just had the GDG Fest yesterday, and developing the community in Australia, because like right now I'm currently based in Australia, and before that I travel around between Indonesia, Asia, and then Australia. So now I'm focusing also developing the community in Australia. As the recent Google for Startup Accelerator Southeast that we finished a couple of weeks ago. So basically, that's what I in my professional life as my involvement with Google.
This is great, Eunice. And today we are going to talk about why UX design is important for startups. And actually, this field is growing in Tunisia, and we have many startups. And this topic is interesting for our community also. So the first question we can go through that: is design so important in building a successful startup, and why UX design is important for startups and small businesses? What do you think about this? The experience you had maybe with startups.
Okay, well, why UX design is very important for that's because based on my experience, I've been helping in their early time, like at the early venture startup, and so a lot of the startup in Series A startup who actually receive the Series A funding, and they need to grow quickly. So when they, I'm like just talking about the early venture startups, right? Like when they develop their products, like their product or services, like they need to remember that they take a really big risk, because really like well, they have a design, and sometimes like they are still in the early stage of developing products and services, and it's a lot of work there too. Like with time, it will help them to really understand what kind of product I need to see. Like it really helps them, like not just okay, well, I have a really nice product, but this is really fits into the needs of the market. And then like design, like we have to do process design research process. We like help the startup to sit down and then try to reflect, like what is the user needs, and then doing a proper research and get their insight to build their whole capabilities, but also their product and services, but also like to build internal capabilities of their staff as well. UX actually helping them the process, and to collaborate, to understand it, not just receiving like a command from one person and this, because usually in the startup, like things are really busy, and you just need to do this and this and that. Like, but with the UX, that things like can be slowed a bit. There's a lot of process of iterative and reflection. So my experience also with the Series A startup, or like the startups in between Series A and the early ventures, because they have the expectation to grow the products, like the scale business really quick, really well, and in order to get a lot of fundings to meet the process. So sometimes like when use UX in the beginning, then they are doing much better. Usually that's what I observe. But then sometimes really like applied UX in the beginning. Basically, ideally, like in what they need to do a lot is the generation of the new idea, but they to actually evaluate that they already have developed and actually impacts. Okay, now we have developed this kind of product, have already got the data, and now let's evaluate like the products that we have done well, and then what impact we have like shown for our users, and all these things like can be achieved a proper UX design process. So this is like I think what even like I had some opportunity growth startups, like a startup it's like a goes piece funding, and they actually do a lot of like the activities UX in their so I think yes, then like UX is to not only to leverage the external but also internal capability.
Yes, this is nice. Actually, we have experienced the UX design process in the UX masterclass by Google in Tunisia and in the MENA region. And starting with the UX design with startups is amazing to make them aware about the experience of users and how much it's important to know all those details about the user, their needs, their problems, etc. So, so the second question is how startups are actually aware of the importance of UX design. How did you experience this?
Well, actually, like very interesting, like questions on my experience. A lot of the startups they like grow their awareness like through the launchpad or the accelerator program. Like they did not realize about startup in launchpad. Sorry, a lot of the startups they started to have their realization they joined the product because the programs like a UX program when they have to follow through activities that they have, and that's what they started. Yes, I haven't done, or I have done, but incorrectly. Some like they hire researchers, UI designers because they know they see big startups, successful startups. They all talk UX and they started to realize, what is it? Some of them they very low maturity, so they some okay hire graphic designer and they him or her as the UX designer or UI designer. So maybe a lot of misconception in the big, but then it was okay. At the end of the day, like we have a requirement. Like a lot of the investors, for example, they always ask them like. Have you done UX research? What is like the feedback of the UX research? So that kind of force that they have to run away from from this requirement. So good startups like what Google has been doing, for example, they are really great in growing awareness about UX, and also a lot of like my companies actually doing a lot of and a lot of programs for the startups. We do a lot of UX clinics and UX mentorings for the startups, actually to help them to grow awareness about UX. And basically, UX is much more compared to like when I started my my work back in 2002, where we have to knock the doors of every company. It's like okay, now we are doing UX, and but now like everybody seems to know what UX is. Like it's just like how they apply it with their they applied it correctly, and it's really it's the after like a awareness that there is UX, then UX will to to understand the users better and creating a better. I think that's my answer.
Nice. This is great. So we have the question you talked about that about the role of the UX designer that he play in the most early stage startup. So there is designers, there's user experience designers, there's UI designers, and there's some confusions about this, right?
Yes, that's right.
So
Yeah, there are a lot of problems about that. Well, I think I will just start this one. I think it's a really good question. When we talk about UX, we are talking about different things. Like we talk about the design. Of course, there's something that people talk about, like designing great user interface, designing like a great product, great interaction, but also like what we're doing in Google as well, like what they use thing that is so related, so connected to each other. As a startup, important like how you can actually sell, and that's where the business needs to be iteration. Like we don't design something just for designing. Know what is the ROI for designing something? What is the business side of it? Because otherwise there won't be any business at all. And one other thing like that people is the social cultural aspect. The social is like when we talk about like say for example creating something for people in Tunisia and people in Indonesia. Well, it sounds similar, isn't it? Like Asia and Tunisia, and but then it is completely, it's a completely different. Like how you interact, how you know perceive things and things like differently from us, and then so that's how I look UX like from a different. And then even though you mentioned the UX designer, it's rather complicated because when you say UX design, okay, some people will say, oh yeah, well, this person main job is actually creating a prototype. While some people say, well, and then it goes through all of the UX design, doing copy UX writing, and then doing business and so basically tell other my students that we are working with. It depends on the size of the company. For example, if you only have a small company and you can only hire one person and then you name him like a UX designer, right? Or maybe you are like your company is very big that you have a lot of maybe like a product team that's maybe 10, 20, 50 or 100 people. That's possible. And then you can separate different kind of the roles. You can have a UX engineer, UX developer, front end, you have UX researcher, UX designer, UX writer, UI prototyper, UI designer, UI, UX analyst, and all of things. But if we want, I want to. So basically, the job, whether it is done or many people, basically the very first job, designer is like together with this like the business stakeholders to understand your requirement, what business requirement, what is your vision for doing that. So needs to have the capability actually to ask the question, just to understand why we are doing what we are doing. It's not just accepting, okay, well, this work, and then we just do it, make the prototype, and that. No, so after they understand the requirement of the business to be able, like whether they do it themselves or do it with researcher, they need to conduct market research if it is a new product that we do not know the market yet, and then doing a user experience research, UX research, to understand like the perception, the behavior of the intended users they want to develop their product with. And then it's like based on that, the UX designers need to have the ideas actually to all the data and make the design requirement. Sometimes what happens, like the requirement just come requirement, and but then what is it? What is it based? Nobody know. Like it's based on the blue sky of the founders of the whoever it is. Like what is the basis for that? No basis. Like just my intuition, just my feeling, and that's not right. And there are a lot of startups actually doing that, and it's like they could have a beautiful app, but it doesn't actually address anything or address the problems of the market or the intended user properly. So once like the UX designer are able to create the design requirement, they need to be able to have a communication skill. Just wait a second, I might have. Okay. Okay, they need to have communication skills actually to talk with the business stakeholders. This is what I found, and this is what your requirement. How we make it better, and then move forward from here. And then the UX designers, before they put their hand on a prototype or anything, they need to be able to skill the role of planning, information architect, interaction designer. They can work with the industrial designer. So based on the requirement that they have, they create like a how is the program will interact, what kind of information we want to convey our user direction if we want to ask people to buy things or to get things from, for example. So what kind of interaction? It needs to be planned carefully. So if I buy something from the robot, what sort of information I receive? So that's kind of information architect that they have to do. And then we also think about we also think about, okay, is at the front, like what kind of support at the back, like this whole process, who is actually involved. All of this needs to be designed. So the role of UX designer is really important. Different people together to make sure that this stuff, like or the service that we develop, it's really clear. It's what beyond requirement and what it will look like. But we don't do the prototype yet. So after that, like we said, the UX designer will work with the UI designer, industrial designer. We work with starting to create the prototype. Create the prototype, and this is like where all the creative things, like a lot of creative things with the using different happen here. And UX designer also make sure that there is a process of testing, interactively testing the concept. Not all the prototypes becoming a reality, but it's just like even when you have the sketch, you have the photo or something like that, to do the testing and making it happens. Like meet the answer or address the problems of the users. And after that, its UX designer job is not finished yet. So when the product and service is launched, They also need to continuously measure the performance of the product and see something wrong, and then continue doing that, continue making sure they are not left behind in terms of getting the feedback. So there are a lot of things like when you really about the role of the UX designer, it just creating a prototype. It goes from end to end of the business process. And then small startups, they have a really big roles.
Yes, when we talk about prototypes, we can talk about maybe usability, right? So usability in
Yeah.
UX design is important for a startup or not?
Oh, usability. Just have, okay. I have a really nice. So this is creating like a really low fidelity prototype where they just use paper and pencil, nice wireframe or wire flow on the paper. Even at this stage, it's actually a ability for those who are not really familiar with usability testing. We are actually testing this product to the intended user that whom we are developing the prototype or the product for. So we cannot just do the testing only to the people actually developing or our team. I mean, like we can do that for preparing dry run, but not the real usability testing. And this is really useful. I have experienced a lot when they started the usability test in the level of concept like this. You actually give opportunities for the intended user to give the feedback for your product. And then with this early feedback actually can help you to think, am I on the right direction or am I on the wrong direction? And then that's the concept level. And then if you have this starting to have the high fidelity prototype, actually you can also see how the users actually interacting with the products that you are developing without saying anything, like imposing anything to the users. You can see the users mental mode, how they actually using the app. And you can also see the completion rate, okay, has this user been able to complete task, and to what extent, how long, and all this you can measure. And that's wrong in this process. Actually, you can go back and then see what is wrong with that. Is it the what is it is it the concept which is wrong, or is it the technology that doesn't work? That can be done if you spend a lot in for example couple of months developing product. So I think especially for startup, which you only have a very limited time, a lot of deadline, a lot of activities, with the usability testing, you can do it in a couple of days, and that can change your life. For example, a lot of startups, and then when I did the when I whom I mentored before, and did the mentoring with them, the first thing, because I did not try the product before, so when I went there and they asked me to use, and then I go through this process of the cognitive walkthrough, been doing if I use the surprisingly a lot of times the product fails because and then they did not really nice. I thought this is a really nice product. My investor me a lot of money, so it must be a good product. But how I use this product, and then that. So that is like the point where you can started to realize if the startup has an, if you know about and should be that kind like avoided, like because once it's out and you don't, you're using problems that you will be in trouble because then everything will stay forever online. I think that like usability is very important.
Yes, this is right. So, what do you think about the MVP for a startup? Is it important also? Do you recommend this for startups?
Yeah. Like important because is the quickest that you can do. Like means that if you do MVP, you don't really need to um, finish everything, right? Like you need to focus what matters most and at the moment, and start with that and fail early, get feedback, and then do after that. If you wait, maybe you have too many functions, many features, but if you don't have time to test it, you'll be in a big trouble because to finish like the whole product in maybe in a day or in a two, like it will take months, and it in it's really important to have a MVP and test it, get the feedback and reiterate and make it right, put it in if possible, and then like improve from there based on the user. So that's why that's how it, like we apply UX in this design and development process.
This is amazing, but because this is what we recommend to our startups also. MVP, start building some features at the beginning so you can understand how your product can be with users and you can test it in an early stage. Amazing. So we are going maybe to talk about sprint design because many startups ask about this also. So is sprint design helpful for an early stage startup? What do you think about how we can implement sprint design in our work? What do you think?
Okay. Yes. Design sprint is very useful for the startups. So I would say I think I have something here. Okay, so this is a nice picture when we did the sprint. Design sprint actually, like you don't use design sprint for all of the activities of the design and development. So it's actually you use that one to critical problems, right? Like so first know what is the critical problems that are facing to early startup and to like a growth startup or Series A startup or even the established companies. So UX research result, then problems and address this problem very quickly without waiting. So then you do design sprint. You sprint just for okay, I want to do design sprint, just new feature, just want to do something fun. Don't do design sprint for that random purpose, but purpose. And design sprint helps to accelerate the process of design in a very short time. But you can't just do, for example, I'm going to do this design sprint in 1 hour. Okay. How? Like a lot of startups cut all this process, and then like they just like ask them like, why do you design sprint in 2 hours or in so we did the crazy eight, and that's it, and then and that's how we do this. It's completely wrong. Like if you first like the purpose side, like you really need to do this and thing if you want to problem and you only have a very short to solve this one, and you don't want to do it now. And after that, after that, if it would be really helpful, like if you do it proper. Sometimes this is not a really if it is completely new, then you could do it in 5 days. Something that repeated, then you can as well, depending on how often you have done the for the similar purpose. So for the early startup, helpful, especially they are required to address critical problems that their investors want. Okay, what is like what is different, and they have to they really have to uh, justify like has something that they can offer to the market, to the investor well, and have a unique vision. And one thing is like they need out that, and then basically unique problems of their users. That's why design sprint would be really useful for this early startup.
Yes, we also recommend this for startups, maybe to get starting point and setting some goals to define how it's good or not enough, and to measure it also. Great.
Yeah.
So yes, and can you tell us now about lean and agile design methodologies?
Okay. Well, basically, okay, I'll just go back a little. So this is like the common thing people usually do, like the requirement, design, and verification, maintenance, and sometimes like the process of handing here to here will take forever. And then once you implement here, it's 6 months already, like that you don't time to go back, and then you just like when you get a feedback from the users, and then you will say, okay, well, this is too late for me to change. And that's when you apply the UX, you say here, if you see here, uh, uh, opportunity to actually iterate the process here. You have the idea, the concept, you iterate this. If there is something wrong, you iterate until you think, okay, well, and then you do a lot of prototyping, and then a lot of prototyping when you test it to the users. Like when you are ready, you release this prototype, and then okay, whether it's ready to be released or not. If it is ready, and if it is ready, then you will see again whether this is a prototype problem or problem here. And then when you release the prototype, and then you see after the post release, like is there any change, like need to be made? If yes, to the conception, uh, not then it's done. So it is a common UX process that we do, and with this agile, it's actually like we actually try to make this process really quick. We use the design sample, like try to usually like forever, and using the brain, you can make this process a very short, and then you can get a lot of feedback from that. So we are like developing the design thinking 2.0, where we actually mix between the Google use design sprint to do of design and development, not itself, but in the process of development, there's a lot of iterative people that we can do, and it's actually not. I mean, like if you do design sprint, you only have 5 days. But if you do the design thinking, like you still have to do of days or maybe less. It will depend on how you actually like collaborate with the others and how you get feedback. But then you also do this process, the agile process, the development process as well. I hope it makes sense. Um, and agile process is actually the current agile, like the Scrum process. They actually just do and do and do and do. With this design thinking 0.0, where we apply UX and use design sprint as well as the one of the methodology. Actually, we ask them to not just do and do during the different kind of sprint, but they also apply the UX process, the design thinking 2.0 in each of the stages that that they do, involving a lot of UX research, involving a lot of the process of reflection, and then involving the process of testing as well, and getting the feedback from there and putting back into the process. So that's why I think, back to your question, yes, we need to do UX process. One thing I would like to add is like a lot of companies, they don't buy UX because they think, oh, well, UX can be really long and then we'll have no time, especially startup, and it wastes our time. But with the design thinking 2.0, we actually apply agile in the UX design process. So yeah, the answer is yes. We need to use lean and agile design methodologies into the process of design and development, and especially for the startups.
This is great. We really, I
Yeah.
think, need this kind of advices in our communities and for our startups also, to know how to use maybe methodologies and to know how to apply agile and lean design, etc., with design thinking. This is great, Eunice. This is amazing. Before going to ask you about some other advices for our community, we had actually some questions in the chat. Someone is asking for any tips for remote design sprint, maybe because now we are moving online, etc. So before we used to have the design sprint on our enterprises, and now it's different. We have to adapt actually methodologies of work in groups. So do you have any ideas about any tips for remote design sprints?
Yes, I have plenty of tips.
Great, right.
Yeah, so I mean, I do design sprint on. I mean, a lot with a lot of startups and companies remotely, and well, it really depends. I mean, what you would like to know, if possible, specifically what you want to know, just write on the chat. But basically, what happened is with the remote design sprint uh, not different so much from the real design sprint. If you do it properly in 5 days, we do it in 5 days from 9 to 5 every single day. But we really have to remember that not everybody are ready for this online interaction. And an online interaction for the whole day can be really tiring. So one way that you can do is you need to plan well, like a 2 hours each time of the online can be really really good, like a maximum 2 hours, and then you combine it, you flip it into online and offline activities. The most important that if you have a lot of if you have people doing a remote design sprint with you have to make sure that they commit, and you all of them need to agree what is required from the design sprint. um, leave them with a lot of with some of the activities they need to prepare beforehand, so they know the expectation of each day, so they come to each of the session each day, the process of the growing empathy, and then sketching. They know what they actually have in mind. So we usually do pre-design sprint in advance, and then we go on a 5 days design sprint with our clients. And then you also need to realize that the people who wants to do design sprint, they need to have a good commitment. To talk with the people who are responsible that this is like a commitment. If you really want to do this one, then you need to commit this amount of time. So knowing the expectation is very important, and then knowing the schedule in advance is very important. So people can think okay, well, I don't have to be in front of computer the whole time. But say, for example, you do it in the morning, and then in the afternoon you have to achieve something, then they know that there is an expectation. And then also we found that especially when we do design sprint, we usually use um, online platform like Miro or Mural or any
Moral.
different kinds of other platform that we use. It's really helpful. And we have our own what is it, template that we develop, and everybody names in there, and everybody is expected to achieve something. And then, for example, sometimes the challenge is doing the prototype because the Miro and then also or mural, they can. It's very difficult for you to draw something, and that's why you need to um, tell them in advance that they still need to use some of these online tools like a paper and pen, and then send it to us. So good good connection is very very helpful. Otherwise you won't be able to run the design sprint. So I think that's some of them. There are a lot of tips that we can use. But yeah, just send me an email which one do you want to know, and yeah, if you can share something more relevant, that would be great.
This is amazing. I'm going actually to share with the audience your LinkedIn account so everyone can connect with you to know more about these tools, etc. Actually, we experienced Miro Mural, and Google Jamboard for some workshops with startups as facilitator on the Google for Startup accelerator. And yes, it's good to use them because it's different from having workshops as usual. Yes, this is great. So yes, he said thanks, and we have people from Paris, we have people from Indonesia also. So this is amazing. This is great, Eunice. So we would like to have some advices for our startups and community. Please, can you give them some of your advices?
Okay. Well, I haven't been in your community, but I think know how you do great job of doing these design sessions. Actually, a lot of them is GDG event, which is great. And I think as a community, this is what you need to do. Keep sharing and keep talking about the different kinds of the work that you are doing. I mean, a lot of resources you can find it online nowadays, especially. You can find a lot of things, but what you cannot find is actually the experience of the people and what kind of mistakes they have, what kind of success they have, what works, what doesn't work. And that would be something that the community, like your community Carthage, can do actually. Or maybe the program, you have a lot of programs that you can share to other people. And that's number one, having this kind of a community program to share, it's good. And then the other thing is I think you have a lot of a proper like a program for training UX, and it is really good if you
That's right.
can do that, because sometimes what happens is if you just come to the meetup or meeting, you can still get something really good experience from other people. But with the training, with the one like a sort of, for example, our program of the certification actually force people to do it themselves. And then people like me or like yourself, we can become the mentor and we can help them to do the right thing. And sometimes what I found is there are a lot of misconception uh, with the resources that is available online. And sometimes when you find something online, you think, oh, this is the best or the most the best resources that I can use for my UX project. But sometimes you really need to be careful. As I said in the beginning, one of the aspects of this UX is the social cultural, and then that's something that is sometimes not applied properly in the resources, because these resources is very general, and then when it is applied, so just take an example of the design sprint, for example. Just give you back to the question from Yazin before. Um, so, for example, people say, "Oh, this is how you do the usability testing," and when we found out, for example, we do it in Indonesia, a lot of people are very shy in doing thinking aloud, for example.
Yeah.
How can you do that? Especially in online environment, how you can do that? And that's where your expertise, know-how expertise, and my work,
And yours.
actually can help. Yes,
Yes.
can actually help the people to navigate, and especially for the startups, it will be really useful, because it will fasten, accelerate the process of learning rather than browsing hundreds of internet or articles or something like that. So I think that's like two advice that I would like to share.
Yes, this is great. Thank you, Eunice, for this session. And please connect with us on LinkedIn, on GDG Carthage, Facebook also. We would like to help. We have many startups that connect with us and they want to test their products with us, so we can help as we can. So this is amazing. So I will check if we have other comments. It's okay. So thank you again, Eunice. It was a real pleasure having you today. I'm honored, really honored.
Thank you, Noha.
Yes, I think this is our third time. We met the first time in US.
Yes, that's right.
Yes, and we had a call, and this is our third call. So hope to see you soon, and we can say bye to our community.
Bye.
And yes, please connect with us. Thank you, Eunice.
Thank you, Noha. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming, and I'll see you again. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.